Welcome to Kashtira Adventure. Now, Kashtira is a relatively recent deck, but it's already in a TCG since Darkwing Blast, and it's been around. It's a meta-relevant deck because it can run things like Macrocosmos and Dimension Shifter pretty flawlessly, two things amazing against Tearlaments. But after Photon Hypernova, it becomes an entirely different beast. For starters, it gets many new main deck cards that spike consistency and combo potential, and a new boss monster that is basically Trident but better, and also Macrocosmos, and also with huge stats. And in this deck profile, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So, speaking of the Kashtira cards, what are they? If you don't know, in the TCG already, we have three main Kashtira main deck monsters, that being Unicorn, Fenrir, and Ogre. And you'll almost certainly recognize Fenrir, as he's been toyed around with as a sort of new Pankratops as a generic card. But, would you be surprised to learn that in Kashtira, Fenrir's not the best one, because by a mile, the best main deck Kashtira is Unicorn. An incredibly strong card, very similar to Fenrir, but the main difference is that Unicorn searches spell traps. And let me tell you, there's some good Kashtira spell trap cards. So, as for Unicorn's full effects, and this goes for most of the first wave Kashtira monsters, if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. And all of them have two effects. They search a specific kind of Kashtira card, then they activate a card when they either attack or your opponent activates a monster effect. In this case, Unicorn can once per turn search any Kashtira spell, and then when it declares an attack or your opponent activates a monster effect, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and banish one monster from it face down. A very nice way to punish cocky Tearlament players playing only one Kitkalos. Then Fenrir can be special summoned, and its main effect is that during your main phase, you can search any Kashtira monster. Then, when it declares an attack, or your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and banish it face down. As for the last of these sort of first wave ones, we have Ogre, which can search the Kashtira traps, and when it declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck and banish one of them face down. Now it's pretty obvious what the black sheep of them are. Ogre's by far the weakest, and I'm running at the side deck in this case for niche scenarios. But Unicorn and Fenrir are amazing and essential to the deck even after Photon Hypernova. As for the other pre-Photon Hypernova support, we have Kashtira Birth. Now Birth is a crazy card. It's a continuous spell that allows you to normal summon level 7 monsters without tributing, letting you sort of fix gummy hands. Then its other effect is that during your main phase, you can special summon one of your non-Xyz Kashtira monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Incredible effect, great for extending, great for making combos, and great in the grind game. And its last effect is that if your opponent activates a spell card or effect, and you control a Kashtira monster, you can target 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, banish them face down. And this is not an effect to underrate. Against decks like Tearlament, this can very much come up. Then as for the last card, we have the Trap, which during either player's turn, you can special summon one of your Kashtira monsters that is banished or in your hand. Then, if your opponent activates a trap card or effect, you control a Kashtira monster and this card is already face up in your spell trap zone, you can look at your opponent's hand and rip one card of it from it face down banished. And this is a solid card, mainly because of the Reborn effect, and occasionally you will hand rip. I'm sure you can tell why these two are on the side deck. And as for the extra deck member of the first wave, we have Kashtira Kshatri-La. Now, Kashtira Kshatri-La has a couple of unique effects, and it can be made with any 2 level 7 monsters, or more than that. And it has a notable stat line of 0 attack and 3000 defense. Its extra effect is that during each standby phase, you can special summon 1 Kashtira monster from your deck. Very strong and very relevant. Then its other effects is the thing you'll probably recognize it for. Each time a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down, except during the damage step, you can choose 1 unused main monster zone or spell trap zone. It cannot be used while this monster is face up on the field. This is basically like a super Ojama card, except it can also affect the spell trap zones. Its last effect is if this card on the field will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach one material from this card instead, giving you nice protection against something like Raigeki. So, how about the new Kashtiras? Well, to start off with the most notable one, their level 4 monster, Kashtira Riseheart, the only non-level 7 in the deck. Now, Kashtira Riseheart's effects is that if you control a Kashtira monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Also, you are locked into Xyz monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So a nice summoning condition, especially with some later engines like Adventure, flows very nicely with them. As for its main effect, during your main phase, if this card was normal or special summoned this turn, you can banish one Kashtira card from your deck, except for Riseheart, banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck face down, and if you do, this card's level will become 7. Now at first glance, Riseheart doesn't seem to really do anything, but in combination with the rest of Kashtira cards, this is one of the best combo extenders, and turns something like Unicorn into an amazing 1-card combo. Now the other Kashtira new monsters is Kshatri-La Kashtira and Tearlament's Kashtira, and these are both very similar, as they share a summoning condition that is different than the first wave ones. Both of them require you to special summon themselves from the hand, and then banish a Kashtira or their other archetypal card from your hand or graveyard. So they're very good extenders, and can trigger banish effects of things like Shangri-La. Now, as for their effects, Kshatri-La Kashtira's effect is there. It basically lets it attack like a super heavy samurai, and it makes so Kashtiras, when they battle, they negate the effects of monsters they battle. This might come up, but the more interesting one is Tearlament's Kashtira. Now you'll be seeing plenty of this card in Tearlaments, but in this deck specifically, and this build specifically, Tearlament's Kashtira's mill effect is very relevant, as you can mill things like Water Enchantress, which can be extremely strong if you don't already have access to them. Then as for the new Kashtira spells, we have 2. Actually, ones that I'm playing. There's an extra one, but it's kind of odd. Now, Kashtira Papillas is crazy strong. It lets you to target one Kashtira monster you control, special summon one Kashtira monster with a different attribute from your deck in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except Xyz. So this is a very good extender, and on almost all combos, if you can get access to this card, it will make your end boards way more impressive. Then its second effect is that if this card becomes banished, you can target one of your banished Kashtira cards except for Papillas, add it to your hand. Very nice recycling, and it's not hard to banish Papillas at all, you have plenty of methods. Then their archetypal field spell, Prime Planet Praesos. Now when this card is activated, you can add one Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. Monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each different attribute among the monsters on the field, and if Shangri-La you control activates effect, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So, a very nice search spell that gets consistency, gets a stat buff, and your main sort of boss monster turns into card removal. Very strong, and that's why I'm running this at 3 with Terraforming. As for the last relevant new main deck card for Kashtira, Kashtira Big Bang. Now its main effect is a sort of odd, almost evenly matched effect, but the real relevant part of Big Bang is its banish effect. If this card becomes banished, you can target one Kashtira Xyz monster you control, add one Kashtira monster you own attached to your hand, then you can special summon it from your hand. This is very important in certain combos, especially in combination of Riseheart, as this is the main card you'll be banishing off of Riseheart, as it lets you resummon and extend Kashtira monsters you use as Xyz material. Then the real star of the show, their new Xyz monster, Kashtira Riseheart. Now you could summon this with 3 level 7s, or once per turn, if Shangri-La activates effects this turn, you can Xyz summon a Riseheart by using Kashtira you control. It just has the Zodiac summon condition. Then, its other effect is that any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. It's just Macrocosmos. Then, once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach one banished card to this card's material, not once per turn. Then, soft once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 3 materials from this card, then target one card on the field, banish it face down. Now you might be seeing why I call this Super Trident, because it mirrors Trident in many ways, except it's not a dinky little rank 4, it's a 3k rank 7 that's also macros, constantly adds material to itself, and can quick effect banish cards face down. Any card. And a Rise Heart is really what brings this deck to the next level, as, well, Shangri-La is your main game plan. And there's a certain combo with cards like Unicorn and Rise Heart that let you very easily activate Shangri-La's effect on your first turn. Now, as for the, well, adventure part of Kashtira Adventure, the adventure package I'm playing is a pretty standard one. I am playing 3 Water Enchantress, 2 Rider Van Seer, Griffin Rider, and the normal set of spells. And this is for 2 reasons. First, Griffin Rider is a very competent level 7 extender. So not only is it an Omni-Negate, it also lets you unbrick really bad hands or play through some interruptions. But the other relevant part is that one of Kashtira's major weaknesses is Spell Trap Negation, or negation in general. And an Omni-Negate that you can recycle every turn is excellent. And one card that's especially on my radar is a Book of Eclipse and its sort of sibling, Swords of Concealing Light. Now, you may be saying, well, these cards are kind of old and niche, why are they relevant all of a sudden? Well, for an example of what these cards can do against a Kashtira board, yeah, they're kind of decent in this matchup. They effectively just end the duel on the spot if they resolve. So Griffin Rider as a way to stop them is very nice, and the Adventure Engine doesn't really conflict because you have almost no normal summons. You can normal summon Rise Heart, but you usually won't, and oftentimes, if you're in a situation where you can't special summon Rise Heart, his main effect isn't going to be very good anyways. So it doesn't really conflict with much of anything. The other closest thing to a normal summon the deck features is Barrier Statue, which you only normal summon if you draw it, which you really don't want to do, and even if you do, Adventure Package doesn't stop it from being a card, its effects don't activate. Now as for the rest of the generic cards, I'm playing staples like Triple Attack and Cold Buy, because they're just strong. Prosperity is especially excellent in this deck, because not only does it make the already consistent deck hyper consistent, its banish cost is actually relevant, because of a Rise Heart. A Rise Heart can attach face-down cards to it as material, and there's an especially hilarious interaction with Infinitrack Goliath, because if this is an Xyz material for a machine-type monster, it becomes indestructible by card effects. So you can banish Goliath face down to Prosperity and attach it with a Rise Heart's effect, giving him destruction protection. Very strong. Then, obviously Dimension Shifter. This flows almost flawlessly with the deck, is an FTK against 90% of the game, and is just absolutely worth playing. Now, as for the extra deck, and to go more specifically on Stormwinds, the first one I'll start with as the more unique and most notable of the generic rank 7s, Raid Raptor Arsenal Falcon, which can be made of any 2 level 7s. And once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, special summon 1 level 4 winged beast from your deck. You can ignore the rest of the text, it doesn't matter for this deck. But this lets you, at the end of your combo, just summon a Barrier Statue. And you may be worried, what about the wind issue? Well, you can summon after you summon Stormwinds, both Unicorn and Griffin Rider. Very strong cards. So, it doesn't hurt you that much, and it's not going to hurt you anywhere as much as, say, a Tearlament's player. And the deck is not bad at protecting the card. For starters, you have Griffin Rider, you have Fenrir, you have a Rise Heart. You have all of these different cards that allow you to keep your Stormwinds on the field, and it's very easy to summon. It's not hard to get 2 level 7s on the field. As for the more niche rank 7s, we have Dracosack, which is another competent wind monster to summon, and Dracosack is just strong. Lets you put tokens on the field for protection, and, which I'll go in later, you can do hilarious stuff with link monsters with them. It lets you remove cards, it gives protection, it's a solid Zeus making card, it's just strong. Then we have Harmonizer Gradiel, which has a mix of effects that are more specifically really good against Tearlaments. Its attribute can become each of its attached cards, and it gets destruction protection from those cards, and it can quick effect, target a monster your opponent's graveyard, and attach it to this card's material at the cost of detaching another card. So it's a sort of quick effect every turn DD Crow. Then, the other rank 7 I'm playing that's sort of niche is Dark Armed the Dragon of Annihilation, which is just destroy a card in the field. Very simple. It also banishes cards from your graveyard, but can trigger multiple different effects, and it's very nice. Then we have Flare Metal Dragon, which is a sort of way to burn your opponent. It gives protection. Solid card. Now, the rank 7 I singled out because I would not call it niche is number 89, Diabolicus, the Mind Hacker. This card has a soup of effects, but the notable things, it lets you basically banish cards from your extra deck your opponent's extra deck face down, and banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down. And just to sum it up, because it's a wordy effect, it lets you trigger Kshatri-La 2 or 3 times every single turn. And so this is the best way to completely lock out your opponent's zones. And it's very much worth going into if you can afford to, and a board of Diabolicus, Kshatri-La, Arisehar, and Fenrir is almost unbeatable, unless Book of Cliffs, but that's besides the point. Now, the last Xyz monster I'm playing is Zeus, because this deck is very good at making Xyz, and Zeus is still very strong, and it's notable as it only uses up 1 monster zone, which is a very nice thing to have for a monster as strong as this against a card like Kshatri-La. And as for the Link monsters, I already went over why Goliath is here. You can't even summon it, but the Xyz Material effect is funny. Also is good in, say, the Mirror Match sometimes, or against the Shizu cards. But the weirdest one is Donner. Now, Donner's main relevance is that you can summon it with 2 monster different types, which can be a multitude of things. You can use, for example, Water Enchantress and Fenrir or something like that. But it is a generic extra deck card that can destroy cards in the field, but notably, it destroys itself, freeing up your monster zones so you can go ahead and summon your Kashtira monsters like Unicorn. It's probably easily the most cuttable card from the extra deck, but it can definitely come up and it's pretty strong. Now this is the sort of core 1-card combo of this deck involving Unicorn, and this is sort of the basis of the entire deck. Even if you don't have access to Unicorn, you'll be playing a combo line that's very similar to this one, just a little bit less efficient. Now to start off with, of course, just special summon Unicorn, then use its effect to search from our deck to our hand Papillas. Using Papillas, we will target Unicorn and summon Fenrir. Then, after we've summoned Fenrir, we will search Riseheart. Afterwards, we'll go ahead and special summon from our hand Riseheart to the field. Then, make Kshatri-La with the 2 level 7s. Afterwards, we'll go ahead and trigger Riseheart, banishing specifically Kashtira Big Bang from our deck. Then in sequence, trigger Big Bang and Kshatri-La. So Kshatri-La will block 1 zone, and then Big Bang will special summon a Kashtira monster. Afterwards, go ahead and overlay on top of specifically Riseheart, a Riseheart. Then, on the opponent's turn, we can use Kshatri-La's effect to summon from our deck to our field, Unicorn. So what does this end board do? Well, Kshatri-La lets us keep blocking opponent's zones each time a card they own is banished, and will banish specifically face down. But that's not hard to do, because a Riseheart, Fenrir, and Unicorn can all do that. So I'm sure you know Unicorn can rip cards from the extra deck, and it came out in testing. I ripped their 1 Kick Colossus from the extra deck, and the game was just over. Then, we have Fenrir, which can banish a face-up card, and a Riseheart, which can banish any card face down, and is a Macrocosmos, as well as being able to repeatedly attach material to it. Eventually, you can trigger something like Big Bang's effect on your opponent's turn to summon the material from it. So in general, this is a very strong end board that just took 1 single card. You can go way farther than this if you have extra cards in your hand. So here's a sort of alternate 1-card combo of Unicorn that instead ends on Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds and a Riseheart. Now, for the first half it will look almost identical, with you just going through Unicorn to Papillas to Fenrir to Riseheart, and then Kshatri-La. So here we're just going through the motions that you'll probably get used to, because Unicorn's very easy to get access to, so you'll be summoning it a lot, and you almost always want it as your first summon. So here, using Kshatri-La, then Riseheart, banishing Big Bang, and special summoning from our Kshatri-La, Fenrir, and blocking up a zone. Now here is where it departs from the standard combo. Instead of making a Riseheart with Riseheart, we go ahead and overlay into Raid Raptor, Arsenal Falcon, summoning Bear Statue. Well, first, actually, we summon a Riseheart. And this is very important because you want the material detached from Arsenal Falcon to be banished to then attach to Riseheart. So now, we summon Bear Statue of the Stormwinds. Then, trigger Riseheart's effect to attach Big Bang. So what does this endboard do? Well, obviously we have Stormwinds and the Riseheart banish. But more specifically, Big Bang is very important. That's why specifically Unicorn had to be attached to Riseheart. Because once we get one more material on this card, we can detach 3 except for Unicorn, and trigger Big Bang, and summon Unicorn, getting an extra interruption and another body on the field. So this is a very strong board, almost reminiscent of Thwendery's boards, but with just one single Unicorn. If you have any more extenders, this endboard can get way crazier than this. Now here's a combo line that shows you how the Adventure Engine interacts with this deck. Because you can't use it completely normally, because you need a completely empty field to summon Kashtira, Unicorn, or Fenrir. So, as usual, we will summon Unicorn from our hand, but then activate Water Enchantress effect to search Rite of Amercir from our deck. Then go ahead and activate Rite of Amercir and do its effect. And placing Faithful Adventure on a field. Then we go ahead and use Unicorn's effect to search Papias. Go ahead and afterwards use Papias' effect to summon from our deck Fenrir. Then we trigger Faithful Adventure, searching Draco back and then doing standard adventure things. Searching Griffin Rider, discarding Draco back to put an Omni-Negate on this field. This completely insulates us from hand traps, and puts an Omni-Negate for the following turn if we don't get hand trapped. Afterwards, it's just standard Kashtira things. Fenrir into Riseheart, then summon Shangri-La, then use Riseheart's effect, banish Big Bang, and so on. But notably, this endboard has an Omni-Negate, which does make a big difference, because this deck mostly just has hard removal, so this protects it from things that are blowouts, like say Evenly Matched or Book of Eclipse. So you can see, on the following turn, we go ahead and summon Unicorn from our deck to make this endboard, and this is very strong. It's the standard one, plus Griffin Rider. So this is Macrocosmos, a face-up banish, any card banish, Omni-Negate, extra deck rip, as well as locking up zones. This is almost unbeatable unless you have, say, double Evenly Matched. Now here's a little game of a test duel I did. Now this is for reference game 2. I lost game 1 and 3, but I'm not showing it because it's just kind of in a boring way. Tearlament's just made a board that I couldn't break. But this is showing exactly what Kashtira can do when it's going first in action against a deck, and how a deck like Tearlament responds to it. So starting off with, I just fire Prosperity, fish out any interruptions, hand traps. But in this case, I get a very nice card off the top. I can take the Griffin Rider, turning on the Fateful Adventure in my hand. So I go ahead and use its effect, search Water Enchantress, summon Unicorn, use Faithful's effect to search Griffin Rider, and then normal adventure things. Well, relatively normal. Summon Griffin Rider, insulating me from any kind of interaction, and then go ahead and do standard Kashtira things. And this will end on an end board that Tearlament doesn't really have many ways to get around. They'd have to use 2 blowout cards, and then still have full combo. It would be very difficult to get through. As you see, I'm going for Diabolos as the Mind Hacker in this case, basically to rip Kikkalos from their extra deck and cover up more of their monster zones, in this case 3. Go ahead and use Burst effect, these special summon back the Fenrir, overlay for a Riseheart, then pass to them, use Shangri-La's effect, summon Fenrir, and this is GG. They can't do anything against this really. And, you know, because this deck is basically built to counter Tearlament. I mean, look at a Riseheart and everything it does. So this shows that if you go first, this deck is very hard to beat. So in conclusion, Kashtira is incredibly strong. This deck has tons of flexibility, can play through insane amounts of interaction, can play some very strong hand traps like Dimension Shifter. Overall, it's a very strong deck, and its endboards are incredible. It does have some weaknesses, especially playing through huge amounts of negation, and itself lacks negation almost entirely, meaning a blowout card like Book of Eclipse, or even sometimes Raigeki, can cause you some issues. It's absolutely going to become a meta threat next format, even though I don't think it'll dethrone Ishizu Tier or Kashtira Tearlament. which is really the elephant in the room. This deck is honestly usually, at least in the OCG, better played with Tearlament. However, in the OCG, they usually lean towards more control-focused decks, and this is a pure-blood combo deck. So I think when TCG players get a hold of it, they might make something really demented. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for this, and buying yourself some Book of Eclipses. Thank you for making this far into the video. If you liked it and want to see more in the future, please feel free to subscribe or leave any feedback you have in the comment section below.